Okay, and I've started the recording. This is the ROS2 Tooling Working Group March 12th, 2021 meeting. Those are always a mouthful, but I like having the context at the beginning because when I upload them to YouTube later, it helps because they all get the same name when I download them. And we've got a few people here today, which is good. Maybe a few more will trickle in. I know that everyone's interested in this Prospect 2 merging thing, but I have a feeling that there are a lot of loud voices and not that many people willing to dial in on a Friday morning or whatever time it is. So at the end of the day, we'll have to make a decision today. It's been, I think we've had this question open for a month now. We put it off last time because we didn't have a lot of folks to discuss it, and I still wanted to think through some options, but we'll come to a final decision today. To start out with, I want to talk about, Prospect 2 clock sim time, and also RQ. If anyone has any other discussions they'd like to talk about today, this is always the place to put it. Otherwise, we'll take quick attendance. Got me. We've got. And forgive me if I spelled that wrong. Oh, yeah. It's always switching between tabs, trying to do it from memory. So, let's see, that's who we've got. Last meeting, action items were to give some review passes on some ROS-bag PRs. I don't think we've heard back. He was trying to merge this into the upstream branch, but I think it makes more sense to, after Karsten said so, I think it makes more sense to just have him take over the PR and start a new one, and we can start giving feedback on that fresh PR that he can control, but we haven't heard back on that. So
on that note, for context, what do we do with these open PRs, which are kind of important, but maybe don't get the attention from the community in the sense that we would like to have them in for Galactic? I know maybe ROS-bag is always like a little bit on the fence whether we can, justify not adhering to any timelines and any deadlines. Nevertheless, I would love to have this feature actually in for Galactic because it's open and stale for so long. So my question is, like, at which point does it make sense that we actually just take over this?
The question is whether, I get that. I don't know. I'm wondering, so I haven't actually reviewed this code, this is not the one. So what's the one that is from Mabel's branch? I don't know how it's structured, and I'm wondering.
I guess like the initial commits on these branches are actually from me. I'm sure I had this like if you look into the commits here right now, I'm pretty sure the first ones are somewhat what I had in mind.
I see.
Maybe she rebased. It doesn't matter.
She rebased. So I think it ended up
point was mainly we have lifecycle nodes in there and use the lifecycle nodes to basically control a start stop resume behavior with this. I guess this also gets a little bit more important now when we talk about time.
That was something I wanted to bring up is my proposal for sim time also, I think, handles pause and resume functionality very well. So I'm wondering how we should handle that. I think you left some feedback this morning, but I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah, that's fine. We can talk about this later. My general question is more like, I don't have the Foxy, like the feature freeze straight up into my mind. I think it's like the first week of April.
So,
that gives us
yeah,
essentially 2 weeks.
I think it's actually pretty clear where we stand on that, and it's that as not part of ROS2 core, we're not subject to freeze until May when they cut the final branch. Let's see if I think this is the one that'll Galactic. No, not this. This page I think has, yeah. So on April 5th, we've got a freeze for the core, which is something I'm worried about for the time. If I have to make a change to RCL CPP, then I have 2 weeks. But for changes that are purely in ROSBag, we want to have a new release of the package for testing on April 26th, but we're not actually frozen until May 17th, which gives us 2 months, so 8 weeks from now, approximately.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. It's pretty clear about the core, and the base portion is not called out, and so I'm gonna, until it's explicitly called out, I'll say we should just consider ourselves frozen with the rest of desktop at that time.
That works. Maybe that also answers the question that we should give that lifecycle PR a little bit more time. Maybe the contributor actually comes back around and resumes it.
Yeah, but maybe so. Yeah, if you have time to take it on, I'm worried because I am taking on the sim time thing, which is going to take some time, and I have at least one more. Well, I also need to do this backport, although maybe, if it's taking up time, the backport can be pushed off a little bit longer as long as we've made a decision on it. But there are those who are clamoring for it to be available in Foxy as soon as possible, and I'd like them to stop asking me when it'll be ready.
Okay.
So, yeah, I feel a little bit swamped in terms of getting ready for this Galactic. Otherwise, I would offer to take over this feature. I also want to make sure, that we have this feature and the time ability to control time feature at least agreeing.
Yeah, maybe we should actually consolidate both of them. I feel like there's quite some overlap, and if we work on 2 separate branches, I feel like one of the 2 will suffer from an extensive rebasing again, and
well, so what I'm hoping to do with the time is to make slightly smaller changes so that I don't have to worry about, I'm going to stage the PRs, which is what I've written in the design, which will help with having to avoid any too extensive rebasing. And this feature, we have taken the keyboard control out of this, right?
Right.
Okay, that's good, because so starting paused, that's fine. We don't have to go through a full review of this right now, but I just wanted to figure out the overall is that the ROSBag playback node is a lifecycle node, and by starting and stopping the node itself via the lifecycle API, we can pause and resume the playback, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
This also comes more like in a the main motivation for me back at the time was regarding the system test, that we have some sort of deterministic way to boot up a system, saying like, hey, we give enough time, or we can verify that all topics are matched, like the subscribers and publishers are matched, and then have a somewhat more reliable test result in terms of how many messages were recorded, how many messages were dropped, and so on, right?
I agree with that, and I think that still is a benefit, even if we end up doing pause and resume a different way, which I'm not saying we do.
Right.
So there's value to making this into a lifecycle node regardless. So maybe if D'Anthony does not get back to us within the next couple of days, we try to figure out who can take this over, if it's if you have time to do so, or
I could ping Dave Anthony on it. I
Yeah,
work with
that would
him.
be good.
He was a
Just
bit
because,
confused about the comments he got. He felt like people are kind of pulling him in opposite directions.
yeah, me and Karsten.
Yeah.
I had an idea, but then Karsten had a better idea, so that's what happened
Should I
there.
tell him to go with Karsten's idea?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just of taking over
apologies
PR.
for the confusion.
No, oh, no problem. I'll just clarify because he's like, it sounds like they need to have an internal discussion and get back to you about what they actually want. So
Well, that's the thing is there is no like being an open source project owned by people from different companies. There is no internal discussion. This is the internal discussion right here. So, like open source is a little weird that way. But yeah, so you can let him know that he should take Gopher and start a new PR, and we can start reviewing from there on first principles.
Okay.
And we have 8 weeks to get it in, but we'd like to get it in sooner than that if possible. I don't know also if you've heard from Jacob about the reindexer. He said he was going to figure something out about the error printing, and I haven't heard back from him since, and it's been at least a week.
okay, I'll ping him on that too. Well, let me write these.
Cool. Yeah, because I'd like to get that in too, and hopefully he can get the front end portion working.
I'll just read it
Although
for
I think,
Dave to create a new PR, you said?
yeah, so that he can own the branch and push to it himself.
Yeah, the importance here is like his PR should target master and not any stale existing branches.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh, and then
Jacob
does message us on the element thing, but for some reason, or the riot room, but for some reason it never gives me notifications that there are messages there. Oh no, he just messaged.
Who, Dave or Jacob?
Jacob, a couple hours ago, but I didn't get a notification, so I don't know.
I wonder if it's a time zone, like we're in your future, so it hasn't hit yet.
No, I mean, it says it was at 6:30 for me, which means it was like 9:30 for him.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. That app is confusing. So maybe I'll respond to him there.
So you don't need me to ping him anymore?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to take a look, but I think I'm just going to tell him to revert his unrelated change, which is a common refrain on PRs. Because the one thing that's going wrong with it for him is an unrelated change he made isn't working the way he's expecting it to. And I'm like, at first I was like, fine, it's okay, you can bundle it in here. But now I'm like, nope, maybe you need to think about that on its own separately.
Yeah, now that it's causing an issue.
Yeah. So, great. So that was action items on that was to look at this. Okay, we were resolving last week's action items. The other one was the YAML input converter conversation for Action ROS CI, which we have resolved in the last 2 weeks. And something I specifically wanted to do was kudos and thanks to Christoph for all of the changes on the GitHub actions over the last 2 weeks. It's been really great. I appreciate all of the contributions.
Yeah, so sure. My pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's very appreciated. Then let's see, action items. Think about deprecating some projects. I archived a few repositories in ROS tooling, but we don't need to go into that right now. But so that just makes them read only. It was a couple of the actions that were very Amazon specific, and I never liked the fact that we put them into ROS tooling. So I'm thinking about moving them out, but I don't have community PRs open for actually removing them yet. So we'll put that off until next time. Deprecating repositories. PRs. Cool. And I think, let's see, wait, where's the previous meeting? Prospect 664. I think this one got taken care of. Oh, yeah, we got some feedback on here from Karsten a couple days ago. So we'll wait for the author to get back on that. Thanks for taking a look. I didn't get around to that one. Okay. That's all the action items from last time. Now, we don't have any community PRs, pretty sure. Nope. So far, I'm pretty sure I've been the only one to open them, and I didn't open any. So let's get to the performance backport. I'd like to get that discussion in, and then we can handle other stuff if we have time. So it was a lively discussion. Some people have very strong opinions about this in both directions, and I'm glad that it didn't turn into too much of a flame war, but there was definitely a little bit of all capsing on the discussion. But at the end of the day, we discussed a few options, which are backport and break. Make a clean backport of specific improvements, and then make a new future package. So I think those were the options that we considered, all of them. I can't remember if there were other tacks that we were thinking about taking. Yeah. So this one, the way that I'm leaning right now is on this one, and I laid out the reasoning for that in both an email thread we had going on, as well as in a post on the discourse thread yesterday. And I want to know, based on this, is there anyone on the line right now who really thinks that we should just break the API instead?
So I was with you until yesterday night when Matthew pointed that out, that Foxy is indeed exceeding the support of Galactic. Right.
Oh.
So it was actually a really interesting point that he said, like, which means people, if people out there switch to ROS-back -future, they most likely won't switch back until H-Turtle, when the next LTS comes out, or even way beyond that, right?
Yeah, so H-Turtle comes out, I believe, right at the end of Galactic support. Like, I think Galactic goes down and H comes up on the
Correct.
same month, yeah. So at the very least, then H-Turtle will be available and will be even better than this Foxy Future package.
But it means, like, what he writes there, right? Like, Foxy goes end of life in May 2023.
Yeah.
So that kind of made me think of, like, okay, if we break it right now, at least people have like 2 more years to react on it. But,
yeah. Let's see. So pros. 2 more years of Foxy. At least we're breaking it early. Yeah. It's a hard decision to make, right? I think if we just break it, someone's going to yell at us. But I don't know who. I've gotten hints somewhere that folks have built their own tools against the C++ API, which means that there are some people who are going to be broken. And we don't know the obvious ones. Yeah, I'm far more hesitant to like pull this trigger. This is the harder one to decide to do.
Asking that question, if we do the -future package, 2 questions. What's technically for us to do there? And then the second question, who's doing it?
I would
and like this goes not only with doing, but this also comes with maintaining, right? Because now once you have that future out there, people might giving you you could kind of like consider this as a second kind of release thing. Because like if people come up and say like, hey, there's a problem in Foxy, the first question you have to ask like, hey, is it a ROS-back
Which
future or is it a
Foxy?
ROS-back one, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, we could make it a thing that we say, okay, we only support the future then.
In which case, why not just clobber the old release? Oh man, there's no. I hate that there's no right answer here. There's no like
Yeah.
conversation end we're gonna come to where I'm completely convinced about any of these options. The only thing I am convinced of is that we can't do nothing. That was the fourth option. Can't do this. That's the one I'm convinced against. So, yeah. So this is like the best approach historically. Cons of making a clean backport of specific improvements. Going to be really finicky. Probably take a lot of time to get right. Because what we'd probably end up doing is like taking all of the headers and then putting the new code underneath so that the existing headers had a shim layer or something like that, which starts to be really awkward. It makes any future backports nearly impossible.
Oh, on the second bullet point, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, for making a clean backport of specific improvements.
Yeah.
Users don't have to know yet. Users have to know about it to get the benefit. When it gets broken. Yeah, open questions for the future package is, one of them is maintenance, the other one is overlapping verb. Could we make ROS 2-bed record for the future package? That was a good point there,
I feel
too.
So I wasn't really sure I actually grabbed all of the gist there, because essentially what we had to do is like you modify the package XML of each package in the future repos, and you say they conflict with ROS-back 2, right? So you would, in a package XML, you would rename the package name to like a -future, and then you had to have like a little tag in your package XML to declare on a Debian level that a package ROS-back 2 future cannot be installed simultaneously with ROS-back 2.
Oh, is that something? I hadn't been thinking about it that way.
So that's the thing we have in the package XML. Let me just
is it? Okay.
pull out the web.
Backend package format 3. Conflict. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I didn't even know about this. So, okay. So you could do that.
I think we have to do that.
Well, if the libraries are named, I guess we probably wouldn't want to name the libraries differently or the header paths or anything. We would just want to change the top level package name and in the package XML and not touch the CMake lists. Okay. In which case we wouldn't have a separate verb. We would just have, this like doesn't seem to work only when I'm sharing my screen. There we go. Okay, so it wouldn't be an overlapping verb problem. We would just get the new one because you could only have one package installed at a time. So that actually sort of takes away the con, that particular con for me, if we have that ability. So now the question is just no overlapping verb. Overlap, not a problem. Trademark packages. That makes it sound even better, honestly, because two of my cons were like the overlapping verb and also the double install. But if we make them conflict, then double installation is also not a problem. I think that having
that's to say, I know that
we
we have it under package XML. I personally never
used it and don't know if it works. Yeah. Yeah, just because it's in a design doc for ROS doesn't mean that it works. That is true.
We should definitely test it somehow, right?
Yeah. Okay. This one's so much easier to do, to just backport it and break it, and we don't even need to do the fast forward thing. Like I did how Foxy is diverged as a branch. And the PR builder only accepts a pure fast forward, but we don't have to make the PR builder pass. We could just do a simple merge commit from master instead of a rebase, which was annoying because there have been a couple of like patch releases, and so you had to keep resolving the changelog and package XMLs. That was the only real problem with the rebase, was that I had to keep resolving those, which was a bit of a pain. But if we just do a simple merge commit, then this is like super easy. You just run a bloom and expect that PR builder won't pass, but CI will be okay, and then future PR builders will be okay, and just for this one change. How do I make a decision now? I think we've laid out most of the thing.
Well, I'll be blunt right now, and I say, okay, I'm gonna vote for the future package. And if you say you wanna do it, then I'm happy to help you and assist you in all the ways I can. And I think really just it's the right thing to do, whatever that means.
Yeah.
In terms of respecting the community. So.
Yeah. So that's okay. If we're casting a vote, I think that I'm also voting that way because so that's what you said. Like you'd vote for future.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. As much as I want to take the easy way out,
yeah.
as I think that's the way I want to go. And if the rest of you on the line want to cast a vote, you are welcome to do so if you have an opinion on this. But I think that's a little bit how this works, is if you decide to show up and participate in this group, that's how you get a vote in the matter.
I don't really feel strongly toward any of them. It's just, I'm glad I'm not the one who has to be the crux of the decision.
I know. Whatever we choose, someone's going to yell at us a little bit. But I think that at the end of the day, as long as they have a way out, who knows? Maybe we even... here's something. Here's a question. Like, could we update ROS to base to install ROS back to future so that new installations, or would that be a breaking change?
That would also be a breaking change. I would say.
That would be a breaking. Anytime like someone who's setting up like a new computer for their
install, with their existing install scripts. Okay. It was just a thought, briefly. Okay, I mean, I think there you go. We voted on it. We're gonna call this the winner, and we'll have to take a look at the conflicting thing, but let's see what I want to do. I want to like highlight it.
Before we do any public announcement on this, though, can we? I mean, sure, this video is recorded and it's going to be online.
Well,
I
can always delay putting it up.
No,
I'm sometimes
that's
very
fine.
slow about that. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Do it. I really just want to have a little test bed to see if this conflict actually really works.
Yeah. So how can I test that? Is it does it work in like a ColdCon build? Because that's something you could test. But even then, how do I make make a Debian?
I think this conflict really only refers to Debian packages.
Okay.
Which means I don't even know if that works for RPMs on you know.
Yeah, no effect on source builds, but maps to conflicts on creating Debian or RPM packages. I think that there is a Bloom command that lets you create the deb, at least locally, which is something you could test. You know, it wouldn't be the exact output you would get from. Yeah. So this is something like I have my current roadmap for me for like the next couple of months includes like ROS sim time, this backport, and a couple other things. So this, I'll put in the work and I'll ask for help where I need it. But I can try to take the time over the next week to test out this conflicts thing. We'll say that, you know, like we've made a decision, but now we have to do the work. So the community maybe shouldn't expect the new version for another couple of weeks. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Maybe we should kick off things with the folks at Ozaraf, which maintain the build farm and everything, to see that we're actually doing the right thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, according to that email thread, like Chris, who I think is the Foxy boss, or maybe he's Galactic, but anyways, it sounded like he at first was thinking that the break was okay, but now likes the future better. So crystallize that.
I mean, the other thing, which is maybe also straightforward to test, is like you release a little Hello World package into rolling and release a Hello World future package into rolling and try to install them both, right?
I think that would be reasonable as a test as well. I'll put action items for the future backport test hello test package and test package future conflicting on rolling. And that's, I guess the question there is whether OSRF would accept, I guess they don't care. They just accept anything into the distro, but that is it feels like we're leaving behind a little bit of debris.
Well, you can always remove them afterwards. Right?
Okay, that's fair. We can also get on that email thread with some of the OSRF folks and just double check that they think it works. Yeah. I can also go look. Specifically test conflicts package XML build. Okay. So that's the next steps for that. We'll reach out, to someone at OSRF to make sure that they have it or find an example of it, and that we're doing the right thing in terms of how we release it. Because it'll be from the same repository, but I think you can do multiple blooms from the same repository. I don't think there's any conflict there. Oh yeah, especially if it's from a different branch, because we do that all the time for different distros. Okay, I will start experimenting with this over the next week, and hopefully have something to say. Should we? Yeah, the question is, should we announce it on here what the decision is? And also, I can clarify that we don't think that the verb will need to change. In which case, most users will just have to install the new package and I guess allow it to uninstall the previous one.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think if you think about it, I think that's a nice compromise. And also like you give the responsibility kind of like back to the users in a sense that like if they want to break API, they do it deliberately, right? So they change their dependencies from ROS back to future. And if it's really only that, in a sense that like, hey, we have to change our package XMLs, then I think that's a fair.
And it's probably, for most users, it's probably one package XML or like one line in their Docker setup script or whatever. Like some people maybe don't even depend on ROSBag 2 as a package XML dependency.
Correct.
Yeah. But if they do, it's probably at the top level, like stack, robot stack package where they invoke their entire thing, and it includes a recording process. So yeah, it's a small change for people who have to do it, likely. Yeah. Okay. I think we should just move on. We've got a couple of other discussions. They should be a lot easier than this, though. We've got action items. Okay, yeah, so I said thank you for clock and sim time. That's something that I just wanted to bring up. I had put it on here before you put any feedback on the pull request, so maybe we don't need to talk about it. I just wanted to sort of bring it up really quickly to discuss my high-level approach. And the high-level approach is that I would like to give the player, I should put this in here. I'd like to give the ROSBag 2 player a clock that controls its understanding of time, so that the player itself doesn't have to understand pause and resume or the rate of playback. And that clock would then provide a sleep until so that it can sleep between messages and would handle time correctly. There's 3 cases that ROSBag 2 needs to handle for time, which is so you said what's external time here, a ROS time published on a clock, and that's what I meant, is that ROSBag 2 makes no consideration for time and just has its own internal understanding of time according to a wall clock. And that's what I meant by this, this is kind of the current case. This is what ROSBag 2 does right now. It just plays back and has a rate and maybe theoretically could pause and resume, but it doesn't tell the rest of the ROS system about its time, and it doesn't take in time. So it's sort of neither publishing nor receiving time, which I can clarify that. The second case is that ROSBag 2 drives time by publishing to the clock topic. And the third case is that an external driver drives ROS time, and most of the time this is going to be like when you play alongside Gazebo, and Gazebo is publishing to the clock topic. And so what I want to do is have a clock class that can handle those 3 cases, that the player then doesn't have to think about time. It just has to trust the clock. That's the crux of this whole design. If the clock gets paused, it doesn't provide later times, and so no new messages get published, is basically how pause and resume would work here. Whereas if time is going, for example, faster, it would provide those times, and sleeps would be shorter, etc. So, thanks for giving feedback on this.
Yeah, essentially had like I only had like So there are a bunch of like inline comments and whatnot, but there are essentially two questions I had. The first one, as I mentioned here, is like, so I guess we have to dictate somewhat like a steady frequency for this for the clock, in which, let's say, if we publish a update once a second, right? How does it influence the overall system if we have an IMU which publishes like with a thousand hertz? Does that influence it anyway? And this is maybe the question is more likely me not knowing how the clock in general works.
No, it's a good question, and we were discussing that in this comment right here. I had open questions of time interpolation, and I think this is still an open question of if the clock class is receiving clock, like yeah. So if our internal clock object is receiving messages samples at a lower rate than the messages we want to publish, what should we do? And I don't have a final answer for this. The answer is maybe, and there was a discussion about this on, I'm having a bit of deja vu right now. I feel like we've talked about this. And I don't think we came to a final answer, but I think there was a discussion exactly about this on the issue asking for this feature as well. And I'm not sure if we should require the clock to publish at least as fast as the fastest topic, in which case we'd be, plus or minus one tick on publishing the thing, or if we should build some sort of time interpolation into the clock itself and have it be based on, for example, the last two samples. Because if, the rate changes, which is something that can happen, you're playing Gazebo and it's playing at 1x real time, and then they change it to 2x real time, the clock messages will come in at the same rate, but they'll have a different actual like time delta between them. And I was trying to draw it out here that if you have interpolation or you're in real time, like these are your messages, right? And these are your clock samples. But if there is no interpolation, you'll have messages back up and get published in bursts every time you get a new time. And
I was just wondering whether we actually have to publish clock, or is it more like, do we publish time events? Time events meaning, okay, the rate changed, or we have a time jump, right? And because like if you think about it, we could just publish a clock once as a starting time. So like, okay, that's our new ground zero kind of like, right? And we take it from there. And the system just behaves as such.
Yeah, you probably want to publish it more often than that, especially if you are thinking about like ROS communicating across two computers where the clocks may not agree all the time. So these samples would be your grounding points, at least. Like you'd snap back in and you hope that you don't drift too much in between samples. And if it's publishing at a reasonable rate, it's probably hard to drift too far. Which, in terms of like when ROSBag 2 itself is driving time, this interpolation is really easy because the clock can provide, whenever you call now, the clock can provide an accurate time, like mathematically. Whereas the interpolation situation only really matters for when you have an external time source, and so you're depending on that clock topic. Because when ROSBag 2 is controlling time, you can publish clock at whatever rate you want and publish your messages internally at whatever rate you want, because the clock class itself will be able to interpolate because it knows for sure what real time is, because it has the rate and the pause resume state inside it. So this consideration to me seems like, well, I guess also if you're publishing, this affects other nodes. So you're doing a playback and you have other nodes that are listening to clock, but this is a wider question, I think, for all of ROS time, of like, how do we interpolate? Or do we interpolate, or do we just require the clock to be a really fast topic? So I know that this design handles perfectly well the cases when ROS 2 is controlling the clock. But when Gazebo is controlling the clock, I don't have a good answer right now. I think it would, like, if we did the naive approach, it would end up looking like this with bursts every time you got a new sample. But we could try to build a simple interpolation in there. I think that it wouldn't be, and that's maybe something I can call out in the design and say explicitly, like, we want to build this simple interpolation that looks like this, and it's based off the last 2 messages. And so if time stops, you won't keep playing for more than 1 extra clock sample or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yes.
Okay. And does that sound okay as an approach?
Yeah, I'd say yes right now. I guess reality, you're gonna see it once it's implemented. But
yeah, that's fair.
I guess this also brings me to a little bit to the second, like these bursts you mentioned. It kind of like brings me to my second question I had. Assume you pause. It wasn't really clear what that meant semantically. If let's say you pause the player, do you pause time in which the player would completely like stop its operations the moment you resume time? It would just resume where it is, or do you pause the actual playback in which time continues, and the moment you resume, you basically skip over messages which are by now in the past? Right.
I was suggesting that, and so I hadn't thought about pausing recording. I'd only thought about playback for this design. To clarify, do you think I should talk about recording in this as well, or do you think that keeping it limited to playing is okay?
Well, I mean, the same question starts for like recording, right? Because like if you pause recording and you resume it, then you obviously lose messages which you haven't.
Yeah.
Right.
So
or do you?
Yeah, for playback, the point I was trying to get at with this design was that if you pause time, and then when you resume, it keeps playing back exactly where it was, and you don't skip messages.
Okay.
Was the proposal, and I can try to make that more clear in the design, but that was what I intended, and that would mean that the way it's written right now, that would mean that the clock topic we're publishing would continue publishing, but it would keep publishing the same time until you resumed, to let the rest of the system know that time was paused as well.
Okay.
But I'm not sure, is that less desirable? Like if you do playback, do you want to be able to pause the playback while letting the rest of the system run as it likes? Yeah, I mean, maybe you have 2 kinds of pause. Maybe you have stop time and stop.
Correct. That's what I want to highlight here, because like also in the first, with the the very first PR we discussed about the lifecycle nodes and whatnot. This is actually the functionality I've seen over there, where like you would just pause the playback, which means the moment you resume, you skip over messages, right? You fast forward time.
Oh, is that how the lifecycle would work?
I think so. That's at least how I had it in mind.
Okay.
You pause only really the publishing of the messages, right? Whereas time continues.
I think that both types of pause are potentially useful. We might have to come up with some clear naming for what they are. I mean, stop time is probably pretty clear, versus like stop publishing, which means that time continues and then you jump back in at the later time to publish.
Even if you called it just stop publishing, like if I hit pause and it play again, it didn't start with the next message that
I know, that's what I would expect as well. Like playing back a movie, like if you pause and then you start playing it, but it's maybe the opposite of like pausing a live broadcast of a TV channel. Sort of if you switch away and it stops playing and then you come back in at real time wherever it is now, and you've missed stuff. So the metaphor kind of
maybe
follows
maybe the
both
second
directions.
option, we could maybe feature this in a sort of skip feature where you would say like, hey, you skip the next 10 seconds.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense. You just have to make sure that the expectation is not that that's instantaneous, because there's also a feature of like skip to a random place and time.
Shouldn't that be seek?
Yes, we can call that seek.
Or
I
maybe
called it
seek.
jump.
Yeah.
But maybe seek is better than jump. So I'm happy to change that terminology. So we could even, I was thinking like by this design, I could have the clock handle both of those cases pretty simply. In the case of pausing time, you just make it, time, not increment the actual, time counter internally. And in the case of pausing, actually no, I think you would just have to tell the player like don't publish.
Correct.
And the clock would keep doing its thing. I don't know how the clock could control that.
Yeah, I don't think the clock should control that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense.
When you said to pause publishing, you could call it like suppress publishing or something. Because even pause publishing.
Suppress makes even more sense, because pausing really indicates to me that you're going to be able to resume at the same spot.
Yeah.
Even if the rest of the system has continued playing. Like maybe you do a thing where you like pause the time that you're giving to ROSbag 2, but you keep publishing the externally facing clock topic at the same rate, and then the offset for the internal thing goes forward, or doesn't go forward.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't already have like a use system time or use bag time?
Kind of.
So I would expect like the conditions under which you're replaying it in terms of that flag would also maybe affect my expectations.
So I only designed in here the pause and resume time feature, I guess is what I'm saying. And maybe if the lifecycle one does like suppression while time continues, then they're not even conflicting features then.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Cool. So
yeah, maybe you can clarify this in the design doc a little bit.
Yes, exactly. This discussion has helped me see what's unclear, and I can go through and try to clarify this. So I'll do another pass of that maybe today. Cool. Thanks. Yes, ROSbag 2 CPP. Action item. Another pass of sim time design. And then next thing on the docket is Aaron Blaisdell wanted to. He's the maintainer of 2 RQt packages that he doesn't want to be the maintainer of anymore, and there was some discussion on here. Someone brought up that they might be willing to take over. So I considered making a breakout, but maybe it makes more sense just as a discourse post of like, who wants to own these? That's the main thrust of the discussion is can we find maintainers for these packages? I know that's hard, and there have been ongoing discussions about like Orphaned Package maintainers. Like there's even a rep in discussion about how that gets handled. I don't know if any of you guys have opinions about this. We could call them orphaned, but he's still around and he just wants to find a new maintainer.
I do believe there's a official process for this. There's a mailing list, often ROS packages at blah blah blah, where you can actually mail this. But a discourse post is definitely the right thing, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just. That's easy enough. Discourse post asking for That's simple enough. So what? Oh, we've got a thing. Orphaned Package. Yeah. And I noticed there's a rep in discussion to like try and formalize the process around handling this.
But yeah, I guess it's pretty straightforward. Just let him post on Discord.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of asking me for help doing it, so I will probably post on Discord. But yeah, so there's this Rep 152. It's been open since 2017, but the Tully weighed in on it within the last month. So maybe there's some progress to be made on it. Yes. Okay, that's all that we really need to talk about there. So what about the ROS2 C++ API do we want to talk about, Karsten?
Not much. It's just given time, we're almost at the time. I opened a ticket for it on GitHub. I feel like now that we have performance optimal, we should maybe look a little bit into like how do we provide a user-friendly API. I actually have 2 tickets and 1 PR open for this. Just browse through it. Let me know what you think, and if you opt for one or the other, I actually take a stance on this and try to get this in before Galactic.
Okay.
So that's really
yeah, I'll take a look. So you said there was another one?
Yeah, I linked that. It's one where we have RCL CPP as a dependency in ROS2 CPP, and that allows us. I didn't show. Yeah, this one, and this would allow us to, get rid of all the serialized back messages facing for the user API, and more like have the ability to pass in random ROS messages and do the serialization and the memory allocation for this internally at ROS2. So it's a little bit easier for people to just write and read messages out of it. Right?
Okay, so it's this PR and
the ticket I opened.
And the ticket. Yeah, okay. I'll give them some attention. I put a thumbs up on here saying, yes, that does make sense that this is this is bad. I agree we should rethink this, but I hadn't given it much thought.
So yeah, the gist for it right now, what I'm tending to is like that we have the serialized back message decoupled from the actual topic, and have
I think that
basically
makes perfect sense. Like messages don't know what topic they're on, at least in terms of how ROS thinks about it.
Correct.
So, yeah. Cool. Okay. I mean, I'm inclined to say that this is definitely better already, and that we should just go ahead with that, and that the topic should be external and they can be stored side by side. So, I'm in favor of what you've put here so far. I will take some more time with it to see if I have any more detailed opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think that's it, and we've just got to the hour. Is there anything else anyone wants to cover quickly before we go?
I'm all set.
Okay, sounds like it. And another question that I'll just put out there, which is sort of unrelated. Is anyone here have opinions about RQt and the state of sort of user interfaces for ROS2? Because I have some thoughts about this, and I'm thinking about maybe starting a breakout session to discuss some options I have in mind. Well, maybe I'll put out a call for interest on Discourse. I was thinking about making a prototype of an Electron-based app using RCL Node.js. So it's a native app, but it would use browser technologies for the front end so that you could use a lot of this really nice UI stuff that people have been building instead of having to build all this cute stuff from scratch and have it be kind of clunky. So that's a project I'm trying to maybe gather some interest for, but it's a personal thing on the side, so there's no hurry on that. Cool. That's everything I had for today. Thanks for coming, and I think we have work to do.
Alrighty.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. See y'all next time.
Bye.